Well, welcome back to the Tim Rumler podcast, ladies and gentlemen, where we spotlight area businesses here in the greater Lansing and mid Michigan area, trying to bring a spotlight to the businesses and the startups that are doing great things. Focusing on real estate, of course. Uh, Really super surprised and stoked about getting this guest on my program today. I would call this gentleman a friend of mine, mentor, and one of the leading agents and real estate brokers right here in the Lansing area. And that's none other than Mr. Brock Fletcher. Brock, thanks for joining us here on the program today.
Well, Tim, I appreciate it. I feel honored that you've included me, and certainly would love to, you know, help anybody who's listening um, with, if they're thinking about getting into real estate or whatever I can share that would be helpful. I would love to do that.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, as my friend would say, I'm a good guest. Settle in, buckle up, and grab the popcorn. Let's see what we got here. So, all right.
Sure.
So Brock, I always start off this way because I really think it's important to shine a light on where people come from and their thoughts and their ideas, especially early in life. Talk to me a little bit about just as much as you're comfortable doing your younger years, where you grew up, and kind of what your parents did for a living, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. So I spent most of my youth in the Eaton Rapids, Michigan area,
Mhm.
and that's where I graduated from high school. We did live in Ohio for about 4 or 5 years, from 1984 to 1989.
Sure.
But I did all my middle school through high school, in Eaton Rapids. And my dad always worked in a factory. Um, when we moved to Ohio, we lived in Charlotte. When we moved to Ohio in 1984, it was for a factory type position with a company by the name of Rockwell International.
Mhm.
And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And my whole life, my dad worked in a factory type setting. And um, my parents were very loving, people, not real astute financially. They weren't wealthy. They weren't, we were what I would consider to be, just like typical middle class. You know, I I enjoyed sports. I wasn't particularly great at any one sport, but like I tell people all the time, I'm I'm n- I always surprise people with just how good I am at things because they always assume I'll be worse than what I am. But so I was reasonably good at a lot of things,
Sure.
not awesome at any particular sport. Um, but you know, and I wasn't there wasn't anything about me from a young perspective where somebody would have said, "Wow, Brock is really going to be something um, impressive from a business standpoint." I
Sure.
was an average student. I like to say that I was in the half of the class that made the top half possible. Um, I was I thought I was going to be an accountant. That was really what I wanted to do with my career. And when I got into college, um, I realized that uh, when you get to upper echelon accounting classes, they're really difficult. And then I switched to become a finance major.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Was young Brock a good student or no?
Um, I wasn't a bad student. Um, I had like a 3.0 kind of a
Sure.
GPA.
Sure.
Um, was not strong in the sciences. Um, I had a good understanding of money. So I did well in classes that revolved around money, not necessarily math, not like algebra or calculus, but like just basic understanding of um, how money worked and understanding that I probably because we didn't have a lot of it, I didn't enjoy that. And so even from a young age, I would often tell people how successful I would be, not in a braggy kind of a way, but I would proclaim to people that I was going to be financially successful. And
Yeah.
my mom would call me Alex P. Keaton, if you remember Family Ties.
Oh yeah.
If I received anything like candy or anything, I would take it to school and sell it. I mean, I was always figuring out how to turn something into money. Like I owned candy machines, I owned a pop machine. I had the candy machines in a baseball card shop downtown. I think I was like 11 or 12. It wasn't, I didn't make a lot of money off of it, but I was looking for ways to be successful in business, even as a teenager in middle school. So.
Once you graduated from high school, Brock, you've shared with me that path a little bit. Talk to me about in the audience about how you made your way from high school into real estate, and you mentioned finance a little bit there after college. Talk a little bit about that. How did you the careers that you stepped at prior to real estate?
Yeah, so I thought I was going to be an accountant. We didn't have a lot of money, so when I graduated, I went to community college, and actually went to community college from 1995 till like 2004. It was a long period of time,
Yeah.
because I worked full time, through the process. And although my very first job was at the peanut shop, I worked there for just over a year, and it was a great experience, but it didn't pay a lot. In fact, my grandpa said it paid peanuts. But it was a great experience. I had a lot of fun, and the owners treated me very well. And I'm forever grateful for that. But my grandfather, when I was 19, said, I would like for you to come work for me, because he owned a land surveying company and he needed a helper. And so I got into surveying and worked in surveying from the time I was 19 until the time I was basically 24. I worked in land surveying, and um, because I was a hard worker, I was able to make pretty good money, doing that.
Sure.
Enough to where my family didn't think it was very smart for me to give up surveying to be in real estate. So um, I ended up transferring to Michigan State once I had accumulated an associate's degree after just a mere 8 years of college part-time. Went to Michigan State, to pursue a degree in finance.
Mm-hmm.
Thought I was going to become a stockbroker. I did an internship with Smith Barney in Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Yep.
And no offense to the brokers I worked with, but it gave me a bad feeling about the career path that I was embarking on. They just weren't that nice of people, and that wasn't in alignment with me. And so I abandoned that. Actually dropped out of college, did not graduate from Michigan State. I'm still technically a senior. I've got about 6 classes to finish, probably more than that now because it's been 18 years ago, but technically I'm a senior at Michigan State still.
Yep.
And got my real estate license over spring break. The last semester I did complete. Got my real estate license and jumped into that, and then just didn't go back in the fall. Just decided to go all in on real estate.
So talk a little bit about that. What was it? A local brokerage? Your experiences there. Talk to us a little bit about that and your early successes and maybe failures in those early years in real estate.
Yeah, so I started with a small brokerage by the name of Thistledew Properties, it was just one person. And I knew her husband because we did house stakeouts for his custom home building company.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, boy, oh boy, with your background in land surveying, you should come work with my wife, because she owns a real estate company that specializes in vacant land and farm properties. And I said, okay. I had a passion for real estate. I already owned a duplex, and I lived in half of it and rented out the other half. And so I understood that people that were well off owned real estate. And I felt like that was a good plan. So the funny part is about going to work with such a small brokerage is I spent most of my first year babysitting their 1-year-old, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
And tending to their cows.
Yeah.
Because they own black Angus cattle.
Yeah.
Big time operation. And after a year and a half, they moved to Montana, and they said, if you would like to buy our brokerage, you can do that. And I said, well, I don't, like, what do you want for it? And they said, well, we want $12,500 for it. And I said, well, okay, well, I think I can come up with that, which I did have to borrow the money from a friend even at that point to do that.
Right.
But I ended up owning and running Thistledew Properties for about 6 years in total. And that was the beginning part of my real estate career. An unsuccessful, or I would say a mediocre at best success over 6 years as I struggled through not knowing how to do the business at a high level.
So you had to navigate those early years by yourself quite a bit then, correct?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. I mean, pretty much by myself, hard worker, but lacked expert level advice or classes to help me excel. And then just combine that with, the the financial downturn of 2008, 9, and 10. I came to Keller-Williams in 2010. And so it was at that point that things started to shift. But my first 6 years of real estate were, gosh, if you're out there in real estate listening and you're struggling and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm 3 years in, I don't know if I can make it. You can, if you're really determined, you can make it. And in fact, you can make it probably 3 or 4 more years without any success and still turn it around as long as you don't give up or quit.
I was very transparent with you when we first met, Brock, and the fact that I'm one for, put your pride aside, and if you don't know a field, get educated in it the best you can. I have great brokers myself that I work for, but I think any type of viewpoint that you can get. Who are some of the early people that you reached out to locally, that in the Lansing area at least, that you felt comfortable and that you would say really helped you out in the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll be honest, initially I didn't reach out to a ton of people just because I didn't know,
Oh.
I didn't have a support network. But, along the way, like, um, Jeff Burke was a catalyst for me to end up at Keller-Williams, really helped me. Um, Kim Dunham has been
Mhm.
a great mentor to me,
Mhm.
helping me to become successful. Jeff Thornton, who is with, Coldwell Banker, um, Jeff was nice to me, early in my early years, even when I was just Thistledew Properties, and would share knowledge with me. And, um, you know, I probably should have reached out for more mentorship in that in my early years, but just didn't know to do it. Didn't know that other people might be happy
Right,
to help.
right.
But have been blessed with a lot of mentorship, um, not only on a local level but a national level within Keller-Williams. And of course, now being successful for a number of years, I mastermind with agents from many companies.
Yeah,
From not only the Mid Michigan area but also across the nation. So
absolutely. Brock, being one of the leading brokers, of course, here in the Lansing area, can you speak to early on? And I think I'm blessed in the fact that I've realized this in the mentors that I've had so far is making sure two things, and you really even impressed this upon me, is structuring your day and putting in systems along the way, having a routine, being consistent, having a routine, being consistent. Can you talk about how important that is, especially to the young broker or young agent who might be out there watching this? How important that is?
definitely, mastering your morning and putting structure through your day is really important to build the habits of success. And
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm not the first person that will have said this, but the idea, so every time you make a decision in your day, it takes away some of your like willpower,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like every time you're challenged for a decision, you're tapping into part of your body, part of your brain, and that it's your energy is not unlimited. It's got limits to it, right?
Right.
And
Exactly.
so having a very powerful structure
Mm-hmm.
and saving all of your important mental capacity for
Mm-hmm.
hard-hitting business issues will allow you to be successful. So like here's what I mean by that. Like I know every day I'm basically going to get up at 4. I know I'm going to do my to-do list, check my email from 4 to 5. I know I'm going to make coffee at 5. I know I'm going to have some quality family time
Yep.
with my wife until 6:30. I know I'm going to get dressed. I know like basically what I'm going to wear. I mean, my morning is like really regimented.
Mm-hmm.
I get to the office at the same time. I do this essentially take the same action step. So everything I do in my day, I try to have purpose and meaning to, and structure it. That way I am, optimizing my productivity. Because like, here's the reality. You and I have the same amount of time in our day that like Jeff Bezos does,
Yep.
or anybody else, right? We all have the same time in the day.
Yeah.
And the difference between people who achieve wonderful things in life is typically it's how you spend your time.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Buying back your day.
That's right.
Preparing for the unexpected, and if you have that plan, if you have that structure, you're better able to handle any surprises that come along the way as well, and optimizing your time that you have planned. So absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Talk a little bit about anybody who knows Brock Fletcher also knows the selling team. The selling team is your brokerage team, your
Mm-hmm.
team that you have put
Yep.
together, constructed to sell real estate here in the Lansing area. Talk a little bit about when when an individual would know, especially when it's been in the business for a number of years, to go ahead and form a team or to work individually, and when will they know to make that leap, Brock?
That's a great question, and it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. But for me, it all comes down to having more business than you can handle.
Mm.
So, like when I got to the point where I was generating more than I could handle, and
Mm-hmm.
I was getting feedback from some clients that they felt like maybe they weren't as much of a priority as they should have been, and I think those complaints were at the time justified, right? I think self-awareness is important, but
Yeah. Yeah.
every time I got to the point where I couldn't handle the business that I had to answer a question, which is, do I get smaller?
Mm.
Do I stay the same and provide, maybe not as good a service? You have to answer those questions. So the thing about me is, whenever I got to that point, I made a decision to hire somebody,
Yeah.
right? I made a decision to hire and continue to move forward. So
Now,
yeah,
how many people make up your team, Brock?
we have I think it's 24 today, but
Okay.
we're between 23 and 25, and approximately 10 of those are on our A team, what we call our administrative team, the A team, if you remember the
Yep.
Mr. T and the A team.
Oh
So
yeah.
we call them the A team because they're awesome and they really do a great job helping me and our agents achieve their maximum. And then we basically have 12, 13 agents, including myself.
Yep.
As of right now, that's where we're at. We've got some new people joining us here in the next week, but yep.
You have a business assistant. You have, if I'm not mistaken, a transaction team. Can you speak a little bit to that? I mean, what I'm trying to get at is, with the varied number of skill sets everybody has on that team, it's strategically placed there to be able to leverage and, of course, finish and complete more sales. Is
Mm-hmm.
is that an ongoing evaluation that you do of the team? And do you sit back and meet with your team and say, are we best utilizing our skill sets there, or is that something that's just working and you guys have been writing it all along, or is there a constant evaluation process there?
Well, there's always evaluation. Although our director of operations does almost all of the evaluation of the administrative team,
Yeah.
and she lets me know, if we need to reallocate um, our people, or if we are over, operating beyond capacity and need to
Yeah.
hire. I mean, those I don't make any of those decisions anymore. All of those decisions are made by our director of operations.
Sure.
Um, Myself, and then Mike Dedman, he's our lead buyer's agent specialist. I still work in production as a listing agent on our team.
Okay.
He and I um, are always evaluating our actual agents to see where they need improvement. We have trainings weekly, we have coaching and mentorship daily, weekly, and then and when I say we're always looking for talent, I mean we are always looking for great people to join our team, because the reality is life happens, and sometimes, people will leave your organization not because they're not happy, not because they're not thriving, but just because their life circumstances change, and um, we want to make sure that we're protecting the customer experience, which means we have to have a deep bench. And so I'm running ads constantly for talent, and I'm interviewing 3 or 4 people a week that perhaps would maybe want to join our team, that we would like to have on our team.
I think that's the best. You just framed it. It almost went over here, but to have a deep bench, you're right. And that's a great analogy as to way any in my young career, any great teams that I have seen have that deep bench, and they're able to
Yeah.
go to that skill set and pull on it when needed. Absolutely, in any situation. So, Brock, one question that I'm asked by my friends, and I always tell them, guys, I'm not qualified to answer this question to any great degree, other than just going on feel and gut. Talk a little bit about, if you can, because if anybody's qualified, my brokers, and yourself, I think are very qualified in answering this question. Talk a little bit about the market here in the Lansing, mid-Michigan area. Is it still a seller's market? Is it swaying? Is it trending one way or still at another? For the layperson, can you kind of describe it the best that you can?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So by definition, it's a seller's market statistically. We have like about a 25, 26-day supply of inventory that remains unchanged.
Right.
Um, that in itself is unlikely to change, just because we had about a 10-year span where the home construction lagged so far below the average that we have this shortage of inventory that's likely to remain.
Yep.
It's likely to change.
Yep.
Now the variable, which is the massive, question for everybody, is all revolves around interest rates. And yeah, they're up at about 7% now on the 30-year fixed. And what is that going to do? Well, the thing it's doing actively is it's making homes less affordable,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so then the question is, will that cause prices to come down at all, or will it have any effect on the market? So I'm going to speak specifically to Michigan.
Yep.
Because Michigan our average sales price is over $100,000 below the national average. Um, my opinion about the Michigan market is that we probably won't see much in terms of any kind of a value decrease.
Okay.
Our inventory is so low, even with rates going up, Michigan is like the most affordable state in the country, and I think it's more likely that Michigan will become a destination because it is more affordable to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And there are states like California and Nevada, Colorado, where they're going to have values that are going to come down. It's completely unrealistic for their values to stay where they are. They're going to come down. But my prediction for Michigan is probably 0% growth from a value standpoint for like the next year to 17 months.
Okay.
You might see the days on market extend a little bit. You're probably going to see, 15% fewer transactions,
Mm-hmm.
because anybody that doesn't have a good reason to move probably won't. So you're going to see fewer transactions. Values, I think, will stay the same. And I think you're going to see interest rates cap out at probably about 10% next year, if I'm being honest.
Uh yeah, it's an ever changing scenario for sure. Um, Brock, one thing I know that you believe wholeheartedly in is social media to a degree, um, and we're going to speak relative to Facebook, LinkedIn, the more organic posts. Can you talk a little bit about what your feelings are on going out, spending thousands on, as we've had this conversation before, on a marketing plan versus just posting organically about your daily wins, whether it be putting somebody under contract, getting a new listing, whatever the case may be. Um, and your thoughts, especially for newer agents, on what should they be doing. In this business, you always want to proclaim. Well, in any business, you want to proclaim your wins to bolster your business, because who's going to shout it louder than you will? But as far as spending a boatload of money, at least in the beginning, talk a little bit about your thoughts on that.
So, in terms of spending,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you should be spending anything unless you're profitable.
Mm-hmm.
So, in real estate, the nice thing about it is you can do very well with essentially zero advertising cost,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you're picking up the phone and offering to help people and communicating with the people that you know. But assuming you're profitable and you're ready to take that next step in terms of how you might spend those dollars, here's my philosophy in regards to using any kind of social media. First and foremost, it's got to be positive,
Mm-hmm.
right? I have a personal, I have bad things that happen to me too. You'll never see that on Facebook,
Yep.
right? Everything I say is positive because I don't like negativity, frankly. And so that's it. First and foremost, it's positive.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, it should have real value for whoever reads it. So what I like to try to do is put valuable information about real estate that other people will feel like, I got something from reading that. I got something. I may not agree with it,
Right.
but I got something from it, right? And so at the core point, that's what I like to put out there. And then I like to put out fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of fun events on our team. I like to give away free stuff. I like to treat people to fun things. I like to receive things. And so I have 4 to 6 events a year that are just fun, where we give away grills and televisions and stuff, just because I like to do it.
Yep.
And it helps create a closer bond with our sphere of influence.
Yep.
And I like to talk about that stuff on Facebook and invite people to attend. So what you don't typically see from me is anything like, I'm Brock, I'm in real estate, next time you buy or sell, call me, right? Because to me, there's no value to that, right? I'm basically asking but not providing any value.
Yeah.
And I don't like to do that. So what I'm much more a fan of is putting out positivity, bringing people real information so that they understand that I am an expert and know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then typically in return, people will reach out to me and say, Brock, I saw what you shared. That told me that you're an expert. That told me you're the kind of person that I want to work with.
Yep.
Would you work with me on this piece of real estate? That's exactly what I'm trying to accomplish. So it's a long-term relationship play.
Yep.
But that's what I'm about. To me,
Yep.
this whole thing is about becoming well respected with your peers and with your clients so that you can be blessed with a lot of business. And serving people at an extremely high level.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. With the route that education's taking now, and we had this conversation when we have talked, way the route education is taking right now with the not so much it's not the fact that degrees are going away, but not as many people are sold on the business of a 4-year degree or otherwise, or the cost of it. What would you say to that person that is potentially looking at a trade or a professional sales career such as real estate? I gotta believe that that is right in the mix of occupations, careers that those young folks, 18, 19, 20, getting out, they don't know what they want to do. You said it in the beginning, that they could take a look at doing, and if they got the hustle, they got the mentality. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, it's a great career, if I'm not mistaken.
It is. I don't think it gets the respect that it should. I also think that's not your fault or my fault, but I think it's the profession's own fault.
Yeah.
We've made it too easy to get a license, and even though we operate by a code of ethics, there's enough agents who don't hold themselves to that standard, where we've created some of our own problems, and we've created our own lack of respect, basically. I firmly believed him. If every single agent operated just as you do, or just as I do, or just as most of the top 10% of agents do, then we would be just as respected as an electrician or a master plumber, or a CPA or whatever, right? And we've got to get away from this, we got to get away from being associated with, as like a used car salesman kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And the only way that happens is to honestly get rid of people that are unethical and who are not serving their clients at a high level. And for the most part, I think it happens naturally, but we've got to own some of our own misconceptions. But I know I went off topic there a little bit, but if we did that, I think there'd be a lot of parents that would say, you know what, would love for my child to have a professional career in real estate.
For sure.
Yep.
For sure. And you truly are, you are an entrepreneur. You have this inventory that you did not have to buy or purchase yourself, but you are an entrepreneur, and you have to structure your day. You have to be financially savvy. You have to acquire skills, and you are an entrepreneur in itself. So if you have any inkling of wanting to become an entrepreneur, in a sense, as a career, real estate, is maybe the path for those young folks. So absolutely.
I agree, and I think it's something that that all young people should consider before they spend, $120,000 on a 4-year degree. Because the reality is, I can take somebody who's a hard worker and teach them how to do this, and if they don't quit, in 4 years, they'll be making $120,000 a year, and they won't have any student loan debt.
Yep.
Now, what happens between year 1 and year 4 is a progression, typically 20, 30,000, 40, 50,000, it's an escalation, but when someone joins my team, I provide all of the education and training necessary for them to be successful. And as long as they can make it through that front end, to make it 4 years, then they will have a wildly successful career, and they won't be saddled with the student loan debt.
Oh man. Yeah, it's the student loan. That's a whole nother issue, but anyway.
It is. I mean, and hey, you can't do everything without going to college, but if college isn't for you, and if you're not like, hey, I'm going to be a nurse, hey, I'm going to be a doctor, hey, I'm not, right. If you're getting a degree and you're not 100% sure what you're going to do, and it may end up in a career in sales, real estate should be a real consideration for your time.
Brock, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I always do this at the end of every podcast, do a few rapid fire questions. I think they're fun, and I think it gets people a kind of a different way to look at the guest. Are you game? Is that okay? Just
yeah. Oh yeah, go for it.
Tell me a couple of your favorite restaurants here in the Lansing area, or the cuisines you like.
Well, I love pizza. I love Cagino's in Grand Ledge. And if I'm going to a bar, I'm going to go to Frank's Press Box.
Yep.
They also have good pizza and good food there too.
As a newbie somewhat here to the Lansing area, my fiance and I couldn't agree with more with those choices. But it's, what's fun about moving from small towns down south there, as you did a number of years ago, and I recently done, is investigating all the different food places to go to here in Lansing. And there's some that are tucked away. You got to find. That's
Yeah,
what's fun. That's,
absolutely.
that's what's fun. Uh, Tell me at least one of your favorite business books of all time.
I mean, it's cliche to some degree, but I mean, you can't. I mean, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill has got to
Yep.
be, right on. That's where
Solid.
it all began, basically.
Yeah. Solid.
Yeah.
How about your favorite Michigan travel destination?
Um,
Or one of them.
that's so tough. I mean, right now, I will say Pictured Rocks in the
Yeah.
Upper Peninsula has got to be right up there. But there's so many. I mean, there's so many.
What is Brock when you're disconnecting, not from technology necessarily, but just disconnecting and from real estate, from business for the day? You're unwinding. You're on the weekend. What do you like to do as far as hobbies?
Um, well, this time of year, I really enjoy tailgating for Michigan State football games. That's a big one for me.
Yep.
And enjoy Michigan State basketball, Michigan State football. I'm not overly passionate about pro sports. And then just really, I just love getting out and doing fun things with my wife.
Brock, if anybody wants to reach out to you, how can they reach you? Whether it be through Facebook or email or otherwise, what are you open to, and where can they find you?
Man, I really still the phone for me is the easiest point of access. So I mean, anybody's able to text me or call me on my cell phone. That personal number is 517-303-3262. I mean, I don't care what you're calling about. I mean, if you're interested in picking my brain, I don't have a problem giving 5 or 10 minutes to try to help somebody. All successful people have received help in being successful. I'm a big believer in paying it forward, and a lot of people have done that for me through the years, and I'm going to do that for other people as well.
I pass this along to you. My father taught me a lesson years ago, and I'm going to wrap it up this way: is that you can always ask, and they can always say no.
That's
But
right.
typically, if you're asking for advice and you're coming to them, more often than not, 99% of the time, they're going to say, "Yeah, come on in." Whether it be 10 minutes or an hour,
Yep.
as you were gracious enough for me. So, Brock, it's been a pleasure. Getting to know you the last few months, and I really appreciate you coming on to the program. Like you said, it's all about bringing value, and that's why I do this. Bringing value to the audience. I don't care if it's 5 people or 100 people that watch this, and especially anybody who's interested in going to real estate or area Lansing realtors that are just interested in hearing about Brock Fletcher. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Well, Tim, it's been an honor. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Have a great evening, Brock. Thank you, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
All right. Have a good one. Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.